Chapter 20. Gabe never imagined this scenario. From his vantage point, he could see Lopez from the side, sitting on the couch. She was anything but relaxed as she played with her hands. They were zip-tied together in front of her on her lap. Rookie mistake, she would easily be able to snap those. The fact that she didn't made him hesitate. She was waiting for something. Her mouth was drawn in a firm line, her eyes tracking the intruder warily. He was a stranger, that much Gabe knew. He'd never seen him around before. He was dressed in black from head to toe. Not a good sign. He must have snuck up on her, his car hidden somewhere because it wasn't in the driveway. Lopez's ex-boyfriend had arrived, and he'd gotten the drop on her. It was an impressive feat. Gabe took stock of the situation. No one knew he was here, but Lopez knew he'd be back soon. That was probably why she was sitting so still, listening to her ex rant. The fact that the assailant had his back to the door was another mistake, and maybe his last. Gabe took a moment to listen, waiting for his opportunity. "How dare you walk out, Anita? I got a little angry, but we could have worked through it. You know I would never want to hurt you, but you pushed me too far." She didn't speak, but he wasn't waiting for a response. "Why did you make me do it? Honestly, Anita, you're overreacting." He pulled at his hair, and that's when Gabe saw the gun in his right hand. He was armed. That just made this situation much, much worse. "Who is this guy, anyway? I get that you were mad and needed some time, but to show up at some guy's house and stay with him, are you trying to embarrass me?" Anita glanced toward the door quickly, looking for an escape. "No, Marco, She started, but he cut her off. "I don't want to hear excuses." He was yelling, spit flying from his mouth and pacing the floor. He was clearly spiraling. This situation was going to escalate. Gabe just needed an opportunity. "You're coming back with me right now. We'll talk about your behavior at home." With the last words, he grabbed Anita's arm, yanking her roughly into a standing position. She wobbled and he cursed at her, pushing her toward the door with one hand, his other holding the gun at his side. Gabe crept into position, moving low and slow and carefully placing his feet. Anita came through the door first, spying him in the shadows but making no indication. She would be ready to fight, he didn't doubt. As the man, Marco, cleared the doorway, Gabe grabbed the wrist holding the gun and slammed it into his knee, causing a cry of pain and surprise. The gun dropped and slid across the porch, dropping on the ground to the other side of the railing. That was one problem down. With a roar, Anita's ex-boyfriend turned to charge his attacker, but Marco was sloppy, letting emotion take hold. He telegraphed each move, allowing Gabe to counter them easily. Gabe had no such problem. Years of performing ops in difficult terrain and having to conceal his thoughts and movements made for a precise, tactical strike. He was clinical and logical, while the other man was a brawler. Gabe moved them down the stairs to flat ground, away from the house. Behind them, Anita lifted her arms above her head and brought them down together swiftly, breaking the zip ties and allowing her freedom of movement. She ran to look for the gun. Grunts and thwacks sounded across the clearing as each hit found its target. Both men were winded. Gabe hadn't been in hand-to-hand combat in years, but somehow he drove him back, trying to get the drop on Anita's assailant. Anita stood by, the gun now in hand, unwilling to use it but ready if Marco looked like he was going to take Gabe down. The men separated for a moment, sizing each other up. Marco spat blood out of his mouth. "So you're the other guy. She's mine. She's coming home with me." Gabe wiped his nose. He'd taken a direct hit, but he didn't think it was broken. "She's not a possession. She can go wherever she wants. She left you. Just accept it, man." "Never." "The police are on their way. You can't win. I have cameras that will show you sneaking up on the house. Where's your car?" When Marco didn't respond, Gabe guessed. Probably parked on the other side of the woods. What were you going to do, stuff her in the trunk? Marco roared again and got low, attempting to tackle Gabe, who spun at the last minute. The two hit the paddock gate hard, the electric shocking them both. "Ugh!" Fortune, who'd been frantically running around the paddock and was now frothing with eyes wild, screamed and galloped for the gate once again. Gabe jumped back. The horse didn't falter. He slammed chest first into the gate. The latch must have loosened during the fight because it busted open, hanging sideways on the hinge. Fortune retreated in a circle and came back. "Fortune, no." But the horse wouldn't or couldn't listen. Fortune was too far gone. He jumped the fence, the electric now hanging uselessly, and landed on the other side. Without hesitation, he ran straight toward Marco and barreled through him, his hooves hitting all the wrong places. Marco fell to the ground in a motionless heap as the horse galloped into the woods. Gabe and Anita ran straight for the fallen man, checking his pulse. His broken body lay mangled, his neck at an unnatural angle. "He's dead." Gabe looked over at Anita, who had tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Gabe. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." Anita had been frozen during the fight. Now that the danger had passed and she was free, the floodgates opened. She broke out in sobs. No, shh, it's okay. It's over now. I'll get Fortune back and you can go home. We'll file a report with the sheriff about what happened today. Soon, this will be just a very, very bad memory." "Gabe, you were amazing. Thank you for protecting me." Anita flung herself at him, hugging him and sobbing. He grew up with a very emotional sister, so the tears didn't paralyze him like many other men. Gabe patted her back and let her get it out. "I need to get rowdy and go after Fortune before the storm hits. First, let's get you inside out of the cold." She calmed down and looked up at him, eyes wide, her lashes wet with her tears. "Thank you for everything." Before he knew what her intentions were, she reached up and kissed him.